I've traveled quite a bit, and my visit to Northern Ireland is by far my favorite vacation ever. So today I'm going to take you through my Ireland itinerary. Welcome to Traveled and Unraveled. I'm Shannon, and I want to inspire you to travel and create. I'm going to dive right in today because I am really excited to share with you my Ireland itinerary. My family visited Northern Ireland about 2 years ago. Actually, it was exactly 2 years ago this week. And we went with another family, friends of ours and their son. And it was honestly just the food, the people, just magical vibes. I loved everything about Ireland. So we flew into Dublin, we went to Northern Ireland, over to Derry, Donegal, and then back to Dublin. So we mainly focused on Northern Ireland. Definitely have to get back and do the southeastern part, but that's what we did on this trip. So I'm going to take you through everything. I have my scrapbook here that I made, and I'm going to kind of read, not really read, but I'm going to go through it to jog my memory. And unfortunately, back when I took this trip, I wasn't really thinking about doing YouTube videos or anything, so I don't have a lot of video, which is sad. And most of my pictures are vertical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the pictures up here on the side while I'm talking to you about everything we did. Okay, sound good? All right. So I feel like I'm opening a book here to read. It's story time. Story time. All right. So the first day we landed in the morning. It was an overnight flight. We flew from Newark to Dublin. We got a car and drove to Northern Ireland. All right. Now, first, don't come at me about this. Okay. I have already been bullied in a Facebook group about this, that you shouldn't drive in a foreign country where you haven't driven on the wrong side of the road before after an overnight flight. Yes. Generally would not recommend to everybody. Okay. However, I'm a really good sleeper. Okay. I can sleep anywhere. I got on that plane at 8:30 and I was asleep in a half an hour. I got a solid 5-6 hours of sleep. And then we got to the airport. I had so much adrenaline. I was so excited. We got a good breakfast at the airport, got in the car. Okay. I had 3 other people, my whole family in the car with me. All of them could drive. It was fine. Okay. And also the route we took from the airport to our Airbnb in Portstewart in Northern Ireland, it was mostly like an M1 road, like a major highway with lanes, and that's not difficult. It wasn't hard getting the hang of driving on the wrong side, or the left side, not wrong. Wasn't hard for me. The hardest part was driving the teeny tiny narrow roads where the locals drive like 50 miles an hour, and I'm chucking along at 35, So like later in the trip, it was actually harder. The first leg coming out of the airport and going up there was not hard at all. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. We did plan to make a stop. Where was it that we were going to stop? Okay, Hillsborough Castle and Gardens. That's about halfway between Dublin and Portstewart. And we had planned to explore the gardens a little bit, get something to eat, make a little pit stop and stretch our legs, but the weather was miserable. Okay, we stopped there. It was like blustery and rainy and cold, and we were a little tired, so we just went to the cafe, which was amazing. Like all the cafes at just like your standard touristy places, the food there is so freaking good, you guys. So good. Never once did I have bloating. Anyway, that's a tangent, but the food is amazing. So we stopped there. We didn't really explore because it was just miserable, like I said. So we had a little snack, got back in the car, drove up to Portstewart. Our Airbnb was phenomenal. It was overlooking the water. We got to see gorgeous sunsets every night. It was a huge house. I mean, it was just everything I could have hoped for. Absolutely loved it. I'll put a link to that particular Airbnb. Again, we had 7 people, so the typical family will probably be a little bit too big for. But if you're going with a group, highly recommend this spot. And we could walk from the Airbnb like right along the water. There was a coffee shop. You could walk right into town, into Port Stewart if you wanted to. You could walk the other way to a beach. It was excellent. Loved that spot. So when we got there, we just kind of settled in. We did go to a grocery store. We picked up some snacks. My daughter was really into getting like unique snacky foods that you can't find here in the States. So we did that, and then we went back and went to sleep. That was it the first day. The second day, we did the Gobbins Cliff Walk. So we got up, we had some breakfast at a little cafe in town that was excellent, and we drove. It was like maybe an hour and a half to Gobbins Cliff Walk, and this was just a really cool spot right on the side. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're right on the side of a cliff, and it was a guided tour. We got lots of cool information. Very fun. After that, we had a little snack again in their gift shop area, little quick snack, and then we were planning to get dinner on the way back. The drive back, we did the Causeway coastal route. I mean, this is where I said there was too much driving, because I drove the majority of the time. And like when you're driving, you can't actually look around all that much, especially on these narrow roads. So I did regret that like a teeny bit, but we stopped, we took pictures, it was just, highly recommend that. I'm going to say highly recommend like a lot in this video, I think. The Causeway Coastal Route is a great drive. I would suggest actually spending the majority of a day doing that if you can, because there's a lot of little towns. You're going to want to stop, take pictures, eat. We ended up in Ballymoney, and let's see, what was the name of the pub we went to? Do I have that in here? Nelly Rua's. Nelly Rua's was the pub we went to. And I had my first fish and chips. Now, I am not a fish lover. I like salmon. I like tuna fish, but white fish and fried fish, generally just not a huge fan, but I'm like, okay, fish and chips, I have to do it. And it was good. It was decent. I do wish I had tried it in some more places, because the other couple that was with us, they went to dinner one night at a different place and said they had the best fish and chips of their life. So I wish I had tried it a couple more times, but I had that for dinner, and an Orchard Thieves cider, which everyone said you have to try, and you do. Okay, absolutely. I love hard cider anyway, and it was phenomenal. I wish you could get it here in the States because it was so delicious. After that, we were driving back to the Airbnb, and all of a sudden I see a sign for the Dark Hedges. Now, if you have watched Game of Thrones, the Dark Hedges is the King's Road that Arya travels on. So it's a very big touristy spot. All the tourist buses go there. Let me just take a little detour here, a little tangent, because I don't know if I've mentioned, I did mention that I have a travel blog, but I don't think I've mentioned that, what exactly it was about. Okay, obviously it's about travel, but my blog is The TV Traveler, because I love to visit TV and movie filming locations. So that was one of the things that I really wanted to do on this tour, because Game of Thrones was filmed in Northern Ireland. So we got to see a lot of spots. Anyway, we passed this sign, and I had the Dark Hedges on my itinerary for a different day. But it was like 8 o'clock at night, and this is in May. So because Ireland is so far north, the daylight hours, it was daylight till like 10 o'clock at night. So it was like 8 o'clock, it was still light out, but I knew there wasn't going to be any tour buses and probably not a lot of people there. And the way that you want to get the photo, a lot of people said that it's a struggle because there's tons of people walking down the road and it doesn't quite look the same. So I was like, oh my God, I like whipped around, turned the car around, went back to the Dark Hedges. I'm like, we have to do this right now. And that was probably the best decision of the whole trip, actually. It was great. There was Nobody there. There were two people way far down the road, and then there was a couple that were taking wedding photos, which they took their photos and then they were like, I guess near the end of their session because they left like soon after we got there. Nobody there. You can see the gorgeous photos we got. It was fantastic. You know, it's just a quick stop. Like all you do is just kind of pull up, take your pictures and go. That's it. So that was really, really cool. Then we went back to the Airbnb, went to sleep. Day three, let's look at my storybook. Day three was Belfast and our Game of Thrones tour. Now this is where our party kind of split up a little bit because the other family we went with and my husband have not watched Game of Thrones. They were not interested in doing the studio tour. Talking a lot. So we split up this day for part of the day. We drove to Belfast, you know, and you can kind of see a recurring theme here. Like we stationed ourselves in Port Stewart because it was equidistant to a lot of things we wanted to do, but it was also far from pretty much everything we wanted to do. Everything was like an hour or 2 hours drive. So, you know, the alternative to that, if you're creating your own itinerary, is moving to a different accommodations every couple days, which I just didn't want to do. You know, I wanted to have a home base. I really loved this Airbnb. So this was the decision I made. Would I do it again? I don't know. Actually, I am doing it again when we go to Scotland. We're basically doing the same exact thing. So apparently I don't mind driving that much. I don't know. Anyway, we drove to Belfast. That was like maybe hour and a half, 2 hours. Let's see, did I write? Oh, an hour and a quarter. Okay, so a little over an hour from Port Stewart to Belfast. We went to St. George's Market. One of my favorite stops. I think it's only open on Saturdays or maybe Saturdays and Sundays. So I specifically had researched this before and made sure that we were able to get there on that day. It's just, you know, one of those big markets that had live music. It had all kinds of food stalls. It had souvenirs, jewelry, all kinds of really cool stuff. I mean, we ate and we bought souvenirs and it was great. I really loved it. It was one of my favorite parts. Then we split up at this point and went to, my daughter, my son, and I went to the Game of Thrones studio tour. The rest of our group did an architecture walking tour of Belfast, which they said was great. Highly recommend. They said the guy spent like an extra hour with them after the tour was over. He just kept talking and walking and everything. So that's really cool. The Game of Thrones studio tour was so good. I mean, I think my kids said that was their favorite part, which I would not agree it was my favorite part, but it was really phenomenal. Like you walk through, you get to see the costumes. I mean, you could spend hours and hours there. There's a lot of in-depth information. There's like an audio tour you can listen to as you go. I mean, so much information about the production of the show. And one really cool thing is oh man, I'm kind of blanking. Let me see if I wrote this down about the faces thing. Okay, the Hall of Faces. If you watch Game of Thrones, if you didn't, you wouldn't know, but the Hall of Faces where Arya, you know, the big column where everybody's faces were. I don't exactly remember like what it was for or what the purpose was. It's been a long time since I watched Game of Thrones, but you could take your own photo and have it show up on the Tower of Faces, which of course we did, and it was really cool. All these little things excite me, you know, that was really fun. So we loved that tour. And after that, we got in the car, went back to the Airbnb. I think that's it. Day 4, we're on. Day 4, we went to Dunluce Castle and the Giant's Causeway. Have I said like this was my favorite? Because I feel like every day was my favorite. This trip was so good, you guys. It's just so good. So Dunluce Castle was probably only like maybe 20 minutes, very close to Port Stewart. We went to the castle. There's a little video that you watch gives you a little background, and then you just like stroll through the ruins. It's a beautiful spot. The views were great, just so gorgeous. It was like a tiny bit rainy, but that just contributes to the vibes when you're in Ireland. That's okay. It's fine. After that, we drove to Giant's Causeway, which again wasn't very far. You know, it was maybe like 15 minutes further. This is obviously a very, very famous place. And again, I'm very proud of myself at the way I structured this, because we didn't even go to Dunluce Castle until like early afternoon. We kind of had a slow morning and rested, went to the castle. By the time we got to Giant's Causeway, it was probably like 4-ish, 4 o'clock. The visitor center closes at 5. The buses that run up and down the hill to the causeway stop at 5. So what we did is we got there at like 4:30. We went into the visitor center for a few minutes. We bought a little souvenirs, went to the bathroom, took the bus down. At that point, it was raining. It just worked out perfect. It was like, you know, like the stars aligned. It was raining, so we took the bus down, and the tour buses were like on their way out. There wasn't hardly anybody there. It was just awesome. It was so great. We did a hike. We hiked a while. There's a lot of trails and stuff you can hike there. We didn't do like everything, but we hiked for maybe, I don't know, 30, 45 minutes, like up a hill and everything, and looked out and took pictures. And it was raining then, not like downpour, but you know, we had rain jackets and umbrellas and it was fine. And then by the time we came back down, the rain had stopped. There was hardly anybody there. And we just enjoyed it. We just climbed around the rocks and took pictures, and it was just so great. So I really recommend like that timing. We did have to walk back up. So, you know, I don't know how long. I don't think I wrote down how long of a, let's see, what's in my little book here. No, I didn't write down exactly how far. I mean, you can look that up, but how far it was to walk back up the hill to the visitor center to our car, because the buses had stopped, like I said, so we had to walk back up. But it was nice. It was great. On to day 5, we went to Castle Ward and the hospital. Okay. So Castle Ward was a filming location for Game of Thrones again. It was where, do I have this written down? Winterfell. Okay. It was where the scenes in Winterfell were filmed. And they have a really cool tour there. I mean, the tour guide had so much energy. We were actually late because we had a problem finding it. And he was like, oh, no worries, mate, you know, like all good. He was so cool about it. And I think the people after us like had to wait a little bit because he did give us like a full hour tour, which I felt bad about. But everybody's so, you know, everyone's so relaxed there. You know, if that happened in New Jersey, people be bitching at you. You know, it was cool. So we did the tour. We got to like dress up. We got to do some archery. Really cool tour. It was a little short. I wish it was longer, and I wish we had more time to walk around the grounds there, because there's a whole, there's like a little tour you can do. They give you a paper and it shows you where different scenes from Game of Thrones were filmed. But at that point, my daughter was really not feeling well. So we decided to kind of cut the day short. And this, again, this was just me and my son and my daughter. And my husband and Max, our other friend, went mountain biking at Castle Ward. Like, Castle Ward's phenomenal. I would have spent like a whole entire day there. There's so much to see besides, even if you're not into the Winterfell tour, gorgeous spot, like tons of stuff to see. So they went mountain biking that morning. And Denise and her son, Steven, I think they just had like a slow morning at home and walked into town. Yeah, that's what they did that morning. So we kind of like did something different that day. So after the Game of Thrones tour, we went back to the Airbnb, and I called a pharmacy to find out, like, what do you do if you're sick when you're in Ireland. You know, like, is there an urgent care? Like, what do you do here? So they were so great. They gave me all this information. They said, you call this number, blah, blah, blah. I called the number. This was maybe like 3 or 4 o'clock. They're like, okay, you're going to go to the Causeway Hospital at 6:30 and you're going to have an appointment there. So that was like their urgent care. So we drove there. It was, I don't know, maybe like a half an hour drive. It wasn't too far, 20 minutes or something. I bring my daughter there. We walk basically right in. We waited like 3 minutes. Okay. Walked right in. The doctor, examined her, prescribed some antibiotics, and we were out. And we didn't even have to pay. Like I went up to the desk and I was like, I'm from America. I don't obviously have insurance here. Like, how does this work? And they're like, oh, you don't have to pay, darling. Oh, okay, cool. I mean, what? So anyway, got her antibiotics, which I hate antibiotics, but sometimes you have to. Got her settled and resting, and that was that for that day. The next day, she was already feeling a little better, thank goodness, and we were on to Mussenden Temple and Malin Head. Again, this was a long driving day. All right, Mussenden Temple was very close to our Port Stewart Airbnb. Beautiful spot. I mean, again, you could just spend a couple hours wandering around looking at the views. It was just phenomenally gorgeous. So gorgeous. After the temple, we drove to Malin Head, which is the northernmost point of Ireland, and also where some of Star Wars, which Star Wars? Let's see. Which Star Wars was it? The Last Jedi. Some of The Last Jedi was filmed at that spot. I guess like the Millennium Falcon was like right there at some point. So Malin Head, I think if I had to pick, God, it's so hard to pick, but this was honestly in my top two. Definitely my top two of locations that we visited. I mean, you could just walk and walk and walk, and everywhere you turned was beauty. Beauty. Mwah! We all just kind of split up and walked around. That's all we did. It was great. It was excellent. After soaking up all of this phenomenal scenery for a little while, we went to find somewhere to eat. Now, I had researched and found a place called Farron's. It's a pub where apparently Mark Hamill, who was Luke Skywalker in the films, had eaten, like a lot of the cast had eaten there. And they kind of play into it, of course. So we show up there and they weren't serving food anymore. And this is kind of a thing you have to expect in Ireland that you have to know about, is there are certain places where it's like, after maybe 5, 6 o'clock, like you're not going to get food. You're going to get pub and music. And I walked in there and that place was everything I wanted an Irish pub to be. There was music, there were cozy, brown leather, warm, cozy nooks to sit in. Like, I wanted to be there more than anything. But again, we were starving, so we needed food. The proprietor of the pub recommended another place that was called the Seaview Tavern, which was very close by. So we went there for dinner, and that was also fantastic. I had a seafood chowder, and I've already said I'm not like a huge fan of seafood, but the chunks of fish and the dill and the creaminess, honestly, one of the best soups I have ever had in my life. Amazing. Then we drove back home, right? That was it. Then we drove back. We had to take a ferry. We took the ferry on the way out. And then on the way back, we drove around a little further because I don't remember why. I think I took the ferry just for the novelty of it. And then on the way back, it just made sense to drive it. I don't know. I don't remember my reasoning there. But anyway, it was fine. Day 7, we're on to day 7. This is going to be a really long video. I'm trying to talk fast and speed through it, but I see I'm already on like 30 minutes. My God. Okay. Day 7, we checked out of our Airbnb and we went to Derry. Obviously, I'm a big fan, well, not obviously, but I'm a big fan of the Derry Girls series. And that was really cool. We took a tour. We, were inside the walled city, walked all around, explored, got to see a lot of the filming locations for Derry Girls and a lot of the history of the city. That was excellent. My daughter found the Yellow Yard was the name of it. My daughter found a thrift shop, which she loves vintage stuff. So she was like, we found it before the tour and she didn't have enough time there. So we had to go back after the tour so she could spend more time in the vintage shop. So Derry was fun, and then we drove to Loch Esk Castle, which was our splurge for the trip. We spent 2 nights at this castle. This is in Donegal, and phenomenal. Okay, I have no words. It was perfection. Okay, that's it. We settled in. They had gorgeous, like full jetted soaking tubs and like showers with 2 shower heads and different pulses. And I mean, just so great. Huge rooms. I want to go back. I want to go back there. Okay. So we checked in, we went to sleep. The next day, we kind of just had a spa day. All right. We were just relaxed. We went to the pool. My daughter and I got facials. After the facial, there's a relaxation room, and they served us sorbet and tea. And then there was their whole, like, I forget what they call them. There's a name for it. Like they're, I don't know. I can't remember the name of it now. But they have all the hot tubs and saunas and cold plunge and different showers with like essential oils and all these different things. Just a variety of relaxation options to explore. And it was great. It was such a nice day. And then after that, we did afternoon tea at the castle. Also fantastic. We discovered our new favorite tea from a company called Ronnefeld, which I'd never heard of before. It was their Irish whiskey tea. My daughter and I loved it, so we asked the woman like what it was so we could purchase it. And then that night, oh, I know what happened that night. Everyone except me went to dinner at the castle, and they said it was literally the best meal of their trip. So rip to me because I did not go. I was just like relaxed and like grungy from my spa day. Not grungy, but like I didn't feel like doing my hair and makeup. Like I have really thick hair. It takes forever to like dry it and make it look nice. And I just didn't want to make myself presentable. I wanted to get room service, and that's what I did. And I enjoyed it. It was great. But I do slightly regret that they said that it was the best meal that they had had. Also, the menu there was a little highbrow. It had some weirdish things, and it was expensive. So I was like, I'm just gonna get a burger and some sticky toffee pudding and hang out in my room, and I'm gonna be happy. And I was. It was fine. It was fine. The next morning we went into the town of Donegal. I wish we had more time there. It was a great little town. We had a wonderful breakfast, walked around a teeny bit, did a little bit of shopping, not much time though, and then we went on to Slieve League Cliffs. So this, again, definitely in my top 2 or 3. Beautiful spot. I love hiking. There's a crazy hike you can do it that's like on a ridge, like very dangerous. I've seen some YouTube videos about it, which if it was just me and my husband, I think we probably would have tried to tackle some of that because we love to hike. But, with everybody and also my daughter not like 100% as far as her health, we didn't do it. We walked around, we spent a lot of time just taking pictures and, enjoying the scenery. Beautiful spot. Then we drove back to Dublin, right? We drove to Malahide, actually, which is a town north of Dublin. We didn't want to stay right in Dublin. And again, this is where my itinerary got a little wonky because we did a day in Dublin, then we did a day where we were driving out to Newgrange and doing some other things. So looking back, I probably would have scheduled it so that we could have just been done with the car and gone into Dublin and not worried about it. But instead, we stayed in Malahide. The Grand Hotel, which fantastic. And we took either public transport, the DART, or in a taxi, Uber, to get into Dublin, which was fairly expensive. So we went into Dublin the first day and we did the vintage tea tour. Now you've probably seen these in a lot of cities. It's like a big bus and you have your little tea party and they tour around. I've also done it in New York City. This is not my favorite thing, I have to say. A lot of people do enjoy it, but I think the food is mid and it's not like a tour. You know, you're getting like a couple highlights like, oh, there's that and there's that. And it's, I don't know, just wasn't my favorite way to spend my time in Dublin. But we did that. And then in the afternoon, we walked around the streets. We were shopping. A few of us did the Irish whiskey tour, which was super fun. Then we were trying to find a place to eat. And I wanted to go to the Temple Bar, you know, the famous one with the red awning and all that you see in all the pictures. This is something that confused me because Temple Bar is a bar, but it's also like a whole area. So there's lots of places called Temple Bar. It's like a district or something. So somebody in the comments can correct me if I'm not getting this right. But, you know, I didn't exactly know like where to go, but we found it and it was mobbed and it was loud. And, you know, the other couple, the other family that was with us, they decided to go get like, I think Greek food somewhere else. And we just found some pub and ate, and there was music downstairs, but you couldn't eat downstairs. You had to go upstairs to eat, and the upstairs was, it felt like, you know, like industrial and like a sports bar kind of vibe. And, you know, so that wasn't perfect. You know, I didn't like love Dublin. I don't like cities. I think I like the countryside much better. So after that, we did a ghost tour, which was great. Totally, you know, fine. I don't have a lot to say about that. My daughter and my husband love ghost tours, and it was informative and fun. And we ended up at the Brazen Head, which is like the oldest pub in Ireland, I believe. Let me just see if that's, yeah, the oldest pub in Ireland, the Brazen Head. The tour stopped there and we took a couple pictures, but we were like tired and just not really feeling like drinking, and everybody said it was like super expensive because the tourist factor. So I wish we had gone in, looking back. I wish we had just gone in and had like, you know, one drink, but we didn't. We just called a taxi and went back home, went back to the hotel. The next day we went to Malahide Gardens in the morning. That was awesome. They had a butterfly garden. They had there was a yoga class going on. Just again, one of those places where you could just walk and walk. We did a tour of the castle, which was really informative and fun, and had an amazing lunch. Again, the lunches at these like just visitor center, they're great. They're amazing. It was probably like one of the best meals I had at the visitor center at this castle, at Malahide Castle. Malahide Castle and Gardens. Yeah. So that was gorgeous. I wish we had had more time there, which I've been saying a million times also, but very nice spot. Then we drove to Newgrange. I'm not gonna do this place justice. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and they have tombs that I'm just going to look down here. They date back more than 5,000 years, older than Stonehenge and the pyramids. You know, they tell you all about it. I'm not good at remembering historical stuff. My husband is really into this, and I'm not good at remembering what it is. We did get to go into one of the passages where apparently it only lights up on the light only hits in on the solstice, and they like simulated how that would look, and you were like crouching through the tunnels, and it was pretty cool. It was a cool spot. And then we went back to Malahide and had a nice dinner and walked around that town a little bit. Malahide's a great town in its own right. Like, just spending some time there will be awesome. Then I think this was our last day. We went back to Dublin, went back to the city, and we did the Guinness Storehouse tour. I'm not going to go into details about a lot of this stuff because these were like things that anybody who's going to Ireland will probably know about. We walked through the town, we went over the Halfpenny Bridge, and then we went to the Trinity College. We walked quite a bit that day. We walked all through the city. Went to Trinity College for the Book of Kells experience. Went into the Long Room, which is it wasn't filmed there, but the Jedi Library in, I think, one of the prequels, Star Wars 3 or 2 or 3. The Jedi Library was based on this Long Room library. And just seeing the books, they were in the process of actually doing some maintenance, so some of the books were taken out, but books that were thousands of years old. Just very cool. I got a very cool vibe there. I loved just sitting there and looking at it. It was really great. Then we found some dinner. We went to Kay's restaurant. That's where we had vegetable soup. Okay, we kept seeing vegetable soup on the menu, and I'm like, okay, vegetable soup. I want you to know, if you go to Ireland, vegetable soup is like a creamy pureed type of situation, okay? Wish I had known that sooner because I kept seeing it on the menus and I'm like, oh, vegetable soup doesn't sound too special, but it is special there. So you will want to try that. Really happy I had it the last night. Then this was our final day, we walked to a place called the Cobblestone Pub. Our friend Max found out from someone he knew that this was a place to go for like authentic Irish music. A lot of the pubs we had gone into thus far on the trip were like, honestly, people playing like Taylor Swift and stuff. Like it wasn't, there were like musicians and bands, but it wasn't a traditional Irish music situation. This place, the Cobblestone, it was awesome. We walked in and there was maybe like 4 or 5 people with different instruments there, okay? Cool instruments like, I don't know, accordions and the things I've never even seen before, like cool instruments. And then through the night, more people would just come in. Like people would just come in, sit down with their instrument, and somehow they're all playing together. Everybody in the pub was so friendly. It was a great experience. I definitely think that if you go to Ireland, at least one night, you've got to find a place like this to truly experience that local vibe. Okay, I think I'm out of breath. Oh my God, that is the end of story time. I hope you got some good information from this video, and if you have any questions at all, I am happy to talk about it. I love to talk about travel and travel planning, and that's all for now. See you next time.